ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविरावीर्म एधि वेदस्य महानिस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि हृदं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्माम् अवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा जिह्वे पिबस्वामृतमेतदेव गोविन्द दामोदर माधवेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। हे कृष्ण हे यादव हे सखेति। नारायण 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 नारायण। Verse number 27, chapter 3. I'll read the verse first. I've already read Bhagavan Shankaracharyaji's Bhashya in the last session. So we'll read the verse first and we'll get into the meaning from where we left in the last session. Verse number 27. Prakrite kriyamani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणै कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ताहम इति मन्यते. Supreme consciousness Bhagavan Krishna in this particular verse is revealing the secret of why, even though at the level of soul all of us are the expression of the same self, but why we have so much difference in our quality of actions which we do in this particular world. Whether some people are doing brilliant and actions which are uplifting the society and uplifting them also, some are doing worldly or normal kind of action, and some are doing are engaged into vicious and cruel action, so to say, which is actually disturbing the decorum and peace of this society. Why is there a difference when we all are the expression of the same self at the level of soul? We all are the expression of the same self with no difference at all. But where does the difference in terms of quality of actions come out? Bhagavan is trying to give that, explaining that here for us to understand why we have difference in quality of actions, why some are excellent actions, some are good actions, some are normal actions, and some are ugly actions that's being done in this particular society. When you see around some kind of actions, when you see around and when you hear about them, it really gives you a lot of pain at the core level. Some incidents which are happening in the society really pains me, and sends shock waves to see society has turned into such ugly state of affairs also. So I told you in the last session, this verse need to be understood in its correct sense, so that you understand this verse, and help, after understanding this verse, help yourself, uplift yourself from your current state to a higher state of action, higher state of awareness, higher state of evolution, rather than understanding this or taking a wrong meaning of this verse and blaming for all your ugly actions, blaming on the misunderstood meaning of this particular verse. Don't do that at all. I told you this verse is a little deep and subtle. That is why I'm taking most of the time in this session to explain this particular verse. I'll try to complete this verse on this session so that you can take it back and understand. Bhagwan says here, प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि प्रकृतेः गुणैः. All actions in the world we see today are done by the qualities or gunas of this prakriti. Prakriti means nature. Now, when I say nature, not to misunderstand the meaning here, and blame the external nature for all our wrongdoings also, we need to understand the two aspects of nature first. When we see some person and some person is angry, and everything which is shared with that person, we will say what, that is his nature to be angry. So nature has got two aspects. One is the external nature, which is the prakriti. Yes, external nature also is an expression of varied combination of gunas. That's true, and I'll explain you as I move along this particular verse. But when we translate that to ourselves, our expression or reaction to a particular situation which we face is also dependent upon the kind of nature we have cultivated, nature we have sustained, nature which is predominantly existing in us. And when I say predominantly existing, when you see earthquake and all these things, the moment you see all these things, flood, earthquake, we say what? Flood fury. Flood fury means what? That is the expression of the tamasic aspects of the external prakriti. When it is in the, it is whatever comes in its way, it just wipes them out, or it ends up destroying things around. We'll call that's a fury of the nature. Fury means what? It is the tamasic side aspect of the nature which is in expression at that particular point in time. When we see things growing, sometimes the crops have come out very good, the environment is brilliant, the weather is excellent in a particular year, and the growth of crop is also so good that so much crops are produced, everything goes on very good. We say what? That is the rajasic aspect of the nature in expression. And when we see very calm and peaceful environment around us, that everything is at the right place, things are going in, nice breeze is going on, there's no rough weather, nothing going on like that, it's a very calm kind of an environment, flowers are expressing around you, and there's a very good aura which is in terms of smell which is coming to you, and you see all the peaceful aspects of the nature. That is when you say that this time nature is expressing its sattvic aspects. Now, I told you one thing in one of my podcasts before also. Remember one thing: whatever is there outside is there inside us also. That is why nature is there outside also and nature is there inside also. So, when we say heat is very strong, oh man, it's too hot these days. What do you say? It's an expression of nature, the guna of that, of the external prakriti. The same thing goes within us also. And that is one of the reason. Now, since I'm on the topic, I'll tell you one more thing here. Navratras have just gone by also. Oh, one of the way we worship Mother is as Mother Shakti. We worship Mother as Mother Prakriti. Prakriti also, the external expression is also Mother only. Mother Shakti means what? The Shakti, or the Shakti actually translates to power, right? So the power can be translated as many aspects. There is physical power also. There is mental power also. There is intellectual power also. And all those power is an expression of Mother only. So that is why when we worship Navratras, one is we worship the form of the mother. Definitely we should, because that's how we will understand her. But we also need to understand the subtler expression of mother as an all-pervasive thing in the nature. So we call mother as Mother Prakriti also, Ma Prakriti, we call her. So, when we worship mother, during Navratras, and also the 9 days of Navratras. I've already spoken about that before also, but I'm expressing you now. The first 3 days of Navratras we worship as a Mother Kali. Now, when we think of the form of Mother Kali, we say that she's in a very furious form, with with a necklace of many demons' head. She is hanging around her neck. What does it actually translate into? We need to understand the way Sanatan Dharma explains about God and goddesses. We need to understand the subtler aspects. The external form is given, the expressive form is given so that we can sit back and think over them, but don't limit them to the external form. They are far beyond the external form. Whether it is Bhagwan Narayan, whether it is Bhagwan Shiva, whether it is Mother Durga, Mother Parvati, whichever way you call it, they are all into. We need to understand them in their deeper aspects. So the first 3 days of Navratra we worship as Kali. The form of Kali we know of is that she's the one who kills the demons. Which are the demons? Now, that is the external form we understand. What are the demons inside us? Demons inside us are our negative tendencies, negative vasanas, our cruel part of characteristics, all those things which we have acquired over many lives, all those negative things which, if they come into external expression, will be destroying for me also and for my surrounding and the people around me also. Those are the negative qualities which need to be eradicated first. The next 3 days of Navratras we worship as Mother Lakshmi or Mother Durga, we call her. We worship her, that now, since the negative qualities have gone, it is time, the time is ripe enough for us to imbibe positive qualities of goodness, positive qualities of love, positive qualities of care, positive qualities of helping people grow, positive qualities. There are a million qualities you can talk about, in terms of expression. So first are the removal of the tamasic aspects which are actually obstructing our growth in life, and then is supplementing or promoting or imbibing the rajasic aspects which are actually going to be helpful in our growth in life, which are going to be helpful for us to go into the next level, which are going to be helpful for our evolution. Then the last 3 days, mother is worshipped as Mother Saraswati. Mother Saraswati actually is the personification of knowledge. Now, without knowledge, of course, the knowledge also can be deciphered into many parts. One is worldly knowledge also. Without knowledge, you cannot act. Now, for an engineer to become a successful engineer, where the success comes later, first he has to gain the knowledge of engineering. For a medical doctor, that knowledge is what makes that person doctor, no? So the last 3 days, mother is worshipped as Mother Saraswati, which actually personifies knowledge. And also, when we talk about the higher level of knowledge, self knowledge is the highest level of knowledge. And Mother Saraswati personifies all the kinds of knowledge. So whether it is for a laborer to work also in terms of skill set, whether it is for a engineer, doctor, anyone to work also, or for a master to become a master means for a self-realized saint to become a self-realized, all those three things can be expressed in terms of knowledge. So mother is worshipped in these 9 days in this particular form. So when we say Prakriti, when we worship in Navratra, remember one thing, there we are worshipping mother to help us make a constructive change in our own nature within us. Not that, pick up anything which you feel like from outside. And that is one of the reasons why it is said, we really need to be mindful of where we engage our attention and into. What are we watching? What are we reading? What are we listening? All these things impact, they are getting stored in us. They are the one which we are going to rewrite our nature. They are the ones which are going to rewrite our character. They are the ones which are going to rewrite or correct our habits. You have to fill in those things. No, that is what Mother Saraswati's role is into. So when we talk about nature, yes, when I see myself, I see myself as two parts. One is my soul as the self itself in terms of expression. Then there are other aspects are antakarana and all. Now, if you remember Puja Gurudev's BMI chart, you will know something at the top of which is just below self or Om is Vasana. Now, Vasana is also something which I have collected over lives, whether negative, positive, normal. That I'm not talking about that, but all those are coming into Vasanas. What Vasana I have and what culture I have developed in this particular life or cultivated in this particular life will ensure how my Vasana gets expressed into. Now, for example, well, and that is one of the reasons why Puja Gurudev was, when Chinmay Mission was set up, he said that create something called Bal Vihar, because through Bal Vihar, we are what you call that, planting culture in our kids. Why? So that even if their vasanas which are there accumulated in them are worse or ugly in nature, they do not find a manifesting field in terms of conversion into action at all. They will remain redundant in someone. Why? Because my culture is completely anti for all the negative kind of vasanas to express. That is how you need to understand Prakriti here. Now, some aspects I said, I'll continue from where I left in the last session. So I was talking about the indispensable nature, or somebody thinks that I'm indispensable in the organization, in the family, in the role. Many places we feel that we are indispensable. I said in the last session before I ended that, if we think that we are indispensable, it is partly true also and partly false also. So both the aspects we need to understand. And when I say partly true, it is partly true from a standpoint, but it is not a complete truth at all. When I say partly false, it is also partly false from from a point in time, but not in entirety also. Let's understand that statement. And first, when a person thinks that without me this work which is given to me will never get completed, then I say that this is partly true and partly incorrect. Now, let's step back for a while and think that we have been appointed in a particular position or role in a company. Let's think that way. Let's take that example right now. If I am currently employed at a particular position or role in the company, and the actions which are to be done and as part of my role and responsibility, and I'm talking about my duty in that particular role, then, and to an extent this statement is correct, that if I don't end up doing this particular work, it will not be done by somebody else, because it is not in the ambit of duty of someone. Nobody has the right to do that because it's my role. It's part of my particular role. So, since others do not have any authority to do that particular work, that's why nobody will come forward to complete that work if I don't end up doing it. And because nobody can, it does not fall in the ambit of duty of responsibility of someone, and nobody has the right to do it, that's why nobody will come forward. And then if I don't end up doing it also, that work will be left at completely it will be left incomplete forever. So yes, that is to that extent, and it is correct also that if I don't do that work, nobody else will do it, because it is not the right of anybody, it's not in the right of anybody else to do it. And for a person who is currently placed at a particular position or role in the company, this thought process is important also. It is required also. Because if this thought process is there, then remember, he will have some firm kind of placement or firm kind of belief in his duties. He will have firm abidance towards his duties if this kind of thought process there, that if I don't end up doing it nobody else will do it. And this kind of a thought or of duty boundedness which arises in me is it is translated and in the common parlance as responsibility. This is what we term as the word called responsibility. And remember, it is not something which is non-spiritual in nature. Rather, in spirituality, the first thing we say is that we should be aware of our duties and we should constantly make an effort to fulfill them. Spirituality is very clear on that. The Sanatan Dharma spirituality always talks about stand up and do your duty. I told you in one of the sessions before also, Sanatan Dharma is a duty bound culture. Duty bound culture means it tells you, yes, no, there is no problem in asking your right, but the first thing which should be your focus should be doing your duty. Do your duty first, then you can ask whatever rights you have. Not that don't, see, Sanatan Dharma is not saying that always let your rights be suppressed. No, that is not the case at all. But it says one thing very clearly, your first and primary focus should be on your duty. And rights should come follow your duties actually. If you have done your duty, you have the legitimate power, you can stand up for your rights. Definitely nobody can stop you also. So it says that, it definitely gives rise to something called responsibility, and it is something which is definitely spiritual in nature, and it gives us awareness and alertness towards our duty. And at that point in time, if somebody says that, without you also, if you are not there also, the work is not going to stop, then at that point in time, that person who says that without this person the work will not stop, he's saying wrong, because that person is on the on the post right now, and it is his responsibility to complete that action. The one who says such thing is actually forgetting a fact that without a person who is already placed on a particular role or in a position, who is employed on a particular position, apart from that person, nobody else is going to do that work. Why? Because it is nobody else, it does not fall as a in the ambit of duty of anyone else at all. And if somebody says that without you know without anyone, no work stops in this creation, then remember this thing. I'll tell you, this kind of a statement is actually a misuse of spiritual knowledge. It is nothing but a misuse of spiritual knowledge. And by this misuse of spiritual knowledge, somebody is actually harming the awareness towards one's duty. Why? Because if you continue, if doesn't matter I am there also or not, the life will move on, then why will somebody even stand up for a duty? That's not correct at every point in time. We should not misuse spirituality to that extent. We should not misuse spiritual knowledge to that extent. And but the other side to it is also true, which we should also know. If I say, hey, that I should also have this awareness in my mind that without me this work will not be done, so I should be completely focused in fulfilling my duty. That's first thing, definitely yes. But along with that, another awareness should also be there in the mind of this person on this post, that when I move on from this post and somebody else take over this post, then that somebody else who takes over this post can also do this work. So, at the total level, I should not consider myself indispensable. But at an individual level, when I'm employed, when I'm into that role or position, into that post, I should also know that as long as I am employed on this post, I'm on this particular role. Apart from me, this work will not be done by anybody else, because it is purely my duty. So when I move on from this post, somebody else takes over this post, then this will become the duty of that person. And I'm sure whosoever company hires to replace me on that post will also be well qualified to do it. So that way the work is not going to stop forever. But yes, at this point in time, I should definitely ensure that this is done, because since I'm on this role right now, nobody else is going to do this duty apart from me. If this awareness is there in my mind, then remember, uh, you know, uh, then remember, I will be focused on my duty, and I will have be completely aware that I am also not indispensable in totality. If this kind of awareness is not yet at there in my mind, then remember, my thinking towards my action and everything is actually incomplete right now. Now, if we are aware towards our duty and we are dedicated towards our duty, it does not mean that I should consider myself as indispensable, for the society or for the company or for anyone. Remember, if this thought by mistake also arises in my mind or is born in my mind, that you know uh, I am indispensable in this role, I am indispensable in this company, I'm indispensable in this position, then remember, in few days, or in few time, in very soon, this thought will also, along with it will be born, that I am irreplaceable, there is no alternative for me. And if this thing comes, now remember, it started with the first thought that I'm indispensable, and it gave rise to another thought that I'm irreplaceable, and another thought along with it that there is no alternative for me. Now if this thing come, then remember, the attitude of this particular person on that role will become callous in nature. It will become pramatta, callous or deluded in nature. And what will happen, because of this mistaken understanding, that since I do not have any replacement, because of this mistaken understanding that I do not have any replacement available in this is creation and for me, then what happens, this thing will come, that however I may end up doing this work, it doesn't matter whether good, bad, mediocre, ugly, this thought will also come into the mind of such a person. And because of this deluded kind of a thought, this person will become indisciplined in nature, will start doing work according to his or her whims and fancy, because this mistaken understanding has come into the mind that I am irreplaceable and there is no replacement available for me in this creation. Now remember one thing, one truth in this creation is also there, is that nobody in this creation apart from the creator is indispensable. But when I translate that into a particular role, yes, till the time I am in a particular role, it whatever is my duty only, and I only should be firm in that duty, I only should be dedicated towards that duty, because apart from me nobody else will do it. Till that time, that is correct. But the moment somebody replaces you, then that becomes the duty of that person, then you are not in that ambit of that action at all. It sounds very opposing in nature and difficult for us to understand that how a person who was dedicated for his duty, was aware of his duty, aware of his actions in the particular role, how that awareness, which is good actually to that extent, led this person slowly gradually into an indisciplined nature. How it is, they are completely opposing to each other. Here we are talking about a person who is dedicated towards his duty, was aware of his duty, was doing it well, and slowly gradually that awareness, which is supposed to lead to a good thing, led to something completely wrong, in terms of making that person indisciplined in nature. So, and because of that indisciplined in nature, even though the person was a good worker, slowly, gradually, this indisciplined nature will lead this person into a downfall, into a decline in his performance, decline in his achievement. It will become a reason for this person's downfall. You look around in the society, you will see many such people who have become complacent with what they are doing and thought that they are irreplaceable, and it does not matter how they perform, and they have all been shown the way out, irrespective of how they have worked till now. So one thing of this we need to understand, that we should be aware that in this creation, apart from creator, nobody is indispensable. But when it comes to a particular role, and this role translates to the family level also, you need to understand. If somebody is at the role of a father, or the role of a father is very, very important and critical for the care and protection of the family, and that role has to be done by the father only. So I when I speak about, or in different forums, about parenting and all, I'm very clear to come to this fact that But parenting also is something which we should learn from the scriptures, the way they want to explain us. Parent becoming a parent is a big responsibility, big responsibility. How many times when the children are young, we have to suppress our things for their growth, for for a contribution towards them, because ultimately they look up to us. So you look at anything in this society, and even I'm talking about leaders who are come to the leading the country in terms of prime minister, president, and all. Also, how much responsibility is there on their shoulder? It's not the fancy of a position, it's the kind of responsibility which is there on their shoulder. Everything they do, just imagine how much volume of people it impacts. Their decision may impact the whole country, and it's one person taking the decision for the whole country. How much responsibility is there on their shoulder? That is why some leaders are looked up to also. Some leaders are looked up as hate with hatred also, because they've not done their role well. Entirely depends on that. So here it is said very clearly that we need to understand, and we need to have this awareness clear in our head, that at completing the work which has been assigned to me as part of my role is my own responsibility. And if I do not end up completing this in time and completing it with quality, then remember, I will be spoiling the flow of work of this organization or this company where I'm employed, or the role which I am in. I am going to be responsible for spoiling the flow of work. And if the work is spoiled, along with the work, I will also be misunderstood by people, or I will also be coined as a wrong person in a particular role. Why? Because when a work is completed well, remember, with the with a correct completion of work or excellent completion of work, the credit goes to the person who has completed that work. The doer also becomes excellent. If the work which is assigned to me I do in an excellent manner, the excellence slowly gradually passes on to me. The excellence in work becomes a credit to the person who has completed that particular work. That is how the work goes in this particular society. But along with that, one awareness should also be there in my mind, that when I move on from this particular role, or when I step down this from this particular role, whosoever comes in this particular role, that person also will be able to do this work well. Because of this fact, I am not irreplaceably important in this particular line of work, line of duty. And that is why it is said, when we use philosophical teaching also, we should use our head, we should use our intellect, and we should think over the things first before using them. Darshan Shastra or philosophy is not something to be played around. Only those who understand it well can actually use it correctly. Otherwise, we are only making it as a leaning thing for us to escape from the things which we don't even know. Don't do that. Don't misuse philosophy. Philosophical teachings, if understood correctly, can carve out a brilliant, peaceful, happy living society. But if it is gets misused, then it can also ensure downfall of a society by giving rise to criminal kind of a people, or vicious kind of a people, who spoils the peace, happiness, and decorum of the society. That is why this philosophy, Sanatan Dharma philosophy especially, should be used only by the people who know about them. At the level of action, at the level of worldly action, with the awareness of my duty, I actually become focused to completion and I contribute to the positive change in the society. Remember, when I say the philosophical teaching should not be misused, at the level of worldly action also, one should not end up leading people from awareness towards their duty towards running, from awareness towards their duty, towards running away from their duty. One should not end up doing that at all. We should not help people do that at all, or we should not lead people to leave if their awareness of their duty and move towards completely escaping their duty. We should not do that. Going forward, Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna says, not to make others understand, but for us, we need to take this understanding very clear that all the actions which are done by us are done by the gunas or qualities of the nature. And I already told you, nature has got two aspects. So the actions which come out of me are expression of my nature, qualities of my nature. Now I'm giving you some example for you to understand. And when as I move forward, I'll also explain you, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji has taken a different level of explanation also for this. Whenever Bhagwan says guna, not only take them with the three gunas of sattva, rajas, tamas, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is explained different level. When I come to that, I'll explain you. But for now, let us understand the three gunas or the qualities of the nature first. So we need to understand this truth about this creation also, that when you look around, aren't the qualities of nature only end up doing the action? Now, when we have sattva guna in us, at that time you will feel that your intellect start working. Sattva guna is the guna which will help intellectual thinking. So in the BMI chart of Pujya Gurudev, when he says intellect is the thinker and the field of action is thought, that functions only when we have sattva guna within us. That is why Bhagwan Krishna said, no, nitya sattva gunas, nitya sattvastha. Bhagwan said in the second chapter, Arjun, carve out an intellect which is nitya sattvastha. You're always in the sattva guna. Tie this verse to the 45th verse of the second chapter, where Bhagwan said, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. Said Nistraigunyo, move above the three gunas. Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvastha. Bhagwan said, no, Nitya Sattvastha. Try to maintain yourself at most of the times well placed in Sattva-guna. Nitya Sattvastha Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. In the 45th verse of second chapter, Bhagwan said. So there, when the Sattva-guna is high in us, or we, during the span of our day, of the waking state I'm talking about, if the primary guna which pervades in us is sattva guna, remember our intellect will always be functioning. And when sattva guna is there, then only learning and knowledge also happens, by the way. When sattva guna is not there, knowledge cannot happen. You may sit in a class, if at that time rajo guna is high, probably, for example, I'll give you an example here, you'll understand. You are sitting in a satsanga, okay, at that time in you rajo guna is high. So what will happen? Satsang is going on, but your thought is, when I go back, I have to finish these all things. Who I'm going to assign this? Your mind is constantly on that. And on the contrary, if your mind is in tamo guna, the moment Swamiji or the person who's leading the satsang says Om and completes his prayer, this person has gone off to sleep. Why? Because tamo guna is high. So that is how the gunas play in us. So when Bhagwan says Nitya Sattvastha, try to maintain yourself predominantly in Sattva Guna. Why? Because learning will happen only at that time. So when Sattva Guna is there, our intellect works. When Rajo Guna is there, then only actions can be performed. Without Rajoguna, action cannot be performed. And when Tamoguna is there, then only relaxation, rest, or sleep is possible. I'm taking the positive aspects for you to know. Oh, I'm not talking about the other ones. Now you think, if this is the case, apart from the three gunas or the three qualities of the nature, what else is working? Three gunas are only working, no? And these qualities or gunas are of the prakriti, of the nature, and they do not belong to one person in specific, they belong to the nature. So Bhagwan is saying, that is what is Bhagwan explaining here, no? Then why does a person feel that I am doing this action? The reason for that mistaken understanding is because of the predominance of ego in this person. This person is becoming deluded, and because of that delusion, this person considers himself as the doer. That is exactly what Bhagwan is saying here. Ahankara vimudhatma karta aham iti manyate. When you read this, the second part, the second half of the verse, now understand this way. Ahankar, because of the ego, this person becomes deluded. Vimudata, Visheshena Mudhatma. Such a foolish person, because of the foolishness of ego, this person becomes deluded, and because of that delusion, this person thinks that he is the doer. And Bhagwan, and in Srimad Bhagavad Gita says, remember one thing, Bhagwan since the beginning is against taking the doership. Bhagwan says, give up the doership. But I told you in the previous verse that for giving up the doership, you have to give up the enjoyership first. And for both these things, you have to give up the identification with the inner equipment called Antakarana first. Now you cannot give up that identification unless and until you first identify yourself correctly as the all-pervasive self. When you identify yourself with the all-pervasive self, all the false identification with this bundle of inner equipment and body and senses will go away. And Bhagwan says, in no way I consider this doership as something which is worthy of keeping. I don't accept doership as correct at all. Bhagwan says, Sarvashah Karmani Gunaihi Kriyamanani. Bhagwan is saying, Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan is saying here that whatever actions are done, they all are expressed by gunas or the qualities, and these gunas or qualities belong to the nature. Now I'll pick up what Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is explaining guna is. Bhagwan Bhashyakar gives the meaning of this word, clarifies this meaning of this word called guna here, and the word called prakriti also. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji says, when he explains prakriti here, he says, Sattva Rajasa Tamasam Gunanam Samya Avastha. The equilibrium of this is three qualities of the nature is what is called prakriti. So prakriti in itself is not ferocious, not tamasic, or not rajasic, or not this thing. When these three things are at their samya avastha, means with their equilibrium, in their right quantity, samya avastha means in their correct quantity, at that time, when it becomes that at correct equilibrium of them, that is when we call that as prakriti. And when this prakriti or this nature goes through modifications, and then these gunas, their quantity goes up and down, it starts varying, and they attain in the extremity of modifications. They attain the extremity of modifications, and then whatever action is born out of them It is because of these modifications. So Bhagavan Bhashyakar has explained the meaning of the word guna here as the modifications of the nature, and due to this modification of the nature only, this cause and effect of the body, which is the form of cause and effect, is also born. So what will be the meaning of the word guna here, or the quality here? That due to the modification in the nature, what is born out of it, which is the form of this body and this entire community of inner equipment, which is our inner equipment, which is mind, body, intellect, and memory, along with senses and along with prana, and plus body, that will become prakriti. And if you understand this meaning well, the way Bhagavan Shankaracharya said, yes, it is true that all actions are performed by this only. Body plus the community of the inner equipments, which is mind, intellect, memory, and ego, along with senses and along with prana. So you see that. So when Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, when you take the meaning of the word guna, don't only translate it to sattva, rajas, and tamas. Rather, in the context of this particular verse, the word guna will mean body. Body means the gross body plus the subtle body, he put together, plus the causal body, these three bodies put together will become guna here. So karya karana rupaihi vikaraihi gunaihi. This is what Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is saying here, in terms of how you need to understand guna. In the Bhashya I read, na, Gunaihi, Vikaraihi, Karya Karana Rupaihi. Bhagavan Shankaracharya has explained there, no? So that is what you need to understand in terms of guna. Whether we are talking about the worldly action, or whether we are talking about the actions arising out of scriptures, all of them, they are done by the body plus this entire combination or the community of inner equipments, which is subtle body and causal body, put together is what sets out into action. So the meaning of the word guna will become the karya karana sangat, the community of the cause and effect, or the combination of the cause and effect will be called as guna here. Now the question comes, why does one misunderstand oneself as the doer? Where does the mistake happen? The mistake happens when we end up saying that, this karya karana sangat, or this combination of the cause and effect, right, which I said, body plus subtle body and causal body and all put together, this actually belongs to me. It is mine. And what happened? So when the moment this person says it is mine, this person has identified with this community of cause and effect, this combination of cause and effect. He has already done the identification, and this is what is called by Bhagwan as ahankar. Aham karta iti ahankara. Sah aham, sah aham, buddhi mano aham, all those things we say, na? And this is what is meant by ahankara vimudhatma. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji says, karya karana sanghatatma pratyaya ahankara. Now this is something also, another subtle aspect which we need to understand a little bit. Now this ahankar, or the ego, is not something which is standalone. It is something which is a suffix to things. Now just think of this thing in a while. And this suffix is also, this suffix called ahankar or ego is nothing but the form of a thought. It is not a physical thing at all, it is a thought. What is the thought? When I wake up as me, having this particular name. Me, this body, my mind, my intellect, my ego, me, my house, my car, my family. All this minus is identification. So it is nothing but a thought only. And aham and mama, me and mine. This is something that, oh, this is something which constantly keeps on going with us. What should I tell you? I'm just, thinking, should I mention it here or not? Okay, let me try and mention it here to you, just to, explain you the thing the way it is need to be understood. This is what Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji has brilliantly, expounded in his bhashya of Brahma Sutra. We call that bhashya as Adhyas Bhashya of Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji. It's one of his brilliant most piece of manifestation which he has done. The way he has developed that, it's really par excellence. In there also, Bhagwan calls this identification as Adhyasa. I'll read some line to get the beauty, but through this only I'll explain that. Bhagwan Shankaracharya in his Adhyas Bhashya of Brahma Sutra says, युष्मत् अस्मत् प्रत्यय गोचरयोः विषय विषयिणोः तम प्रकाशवद विरुद्ध स्वभावयो इतरेतर भावा अनुपपत्तौ सिद्धायाम तब धर्माणामपि सुतराम इतरेतर भावा अनुपपत्तिः इति अतः अस्मत् प्रत्यय गोचरे विषयिणी चिदात्मके युष्मत् प्रत्यय गोचरस्य विषयस्य तद्धर्माणाम च अध्यासः. This much I'll tell you now, for just to give you a piece of brilliant work done by Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji. The Brahma Sutra is supposed to be the highest text available in Vedanta, and there also Bhagwan has through his brilliance brought out this in the Adhyas Bhashya, that the problem starts with identification only. That when we identify ourselves with this entire component, the combination of what you call all as aham and mama. First is aham, which comes up. Aham means me. From the me thought only, from the identification of me only, the other things emanates. Mine. Without me, mine has no existence. If you are not there, then nothing belongs to you. When you are there, only your things will come. No, so it starts with you first. That's the way we need to understand. And when these two things, aham and mama, when we get equipped with these two things, when these two things arise in us, whatever thoughts arise in us emanates from these two things, and that is what is called tadatmya vritti, the thought of identification. And there are two forms, ways to understand that. Either it will say that this belongs to me, or it will say this is me. These are the only two ways that this comes up in terms of expression. The moment this identification thought is established in us, remember, whatever we have identified with, their dharma becomes superimposed on us, which is what I read as in the Adhyas Bhashya. The Adhyas Bhashya I read, no? Cha Adhyasa. There also the same thing is came, na? Yushmad Asmad Pratyaya Gocharayoho Vishay Vishayinoho Tama Prakashavad Viruddha Swabhavayoho Itaretara Bhava Anupapattau Siddhayam Tad Dharmanam Api Sutaram. Their dharma also, the moment we identify with them, their dharma also, we get identified with that and becomes ours. That is what Bhagwan and Shankaracharya ji has brought up here. their dharma, their duty, superimpose on us, which is what is called adhyasa. That tadatma, remember, this tadatma, this identification is not something which is natural. It is made up, it is built up over a period of time. And if it is built up, it can be destroyed also. That is the biggest thing which we need to understand. Today, whatever things we have identification with, the moment that thing we give up to somebody else or becomes uh, owned by somebody else, that moment itself, with that thing, our mama buddhi gets cut off. One example I'll give you. I have a car. I have an identification that it is my car. Few years of driving that car, I decide to sell it off. The day I sell that car off, immediately after that, my identification is cut off. It no longer remains in my intellect as my car. It has become somebody else's. Right? In the same way, the moment as when I sell this car, my mama buddhi, my minus MYNESS, with that car is broken, and the responsibility and duties of that car also becomes cut off from me, eh, and they no longer get superimposed on me. In the same way, that is how we need to understand this minus is something which is built, so it can be destroyed also. So in this example, the moment I sell the car, the responsibility of that car is completely destroyed for me. It never gets the superimposition of these duties is completely destroyed in me. In the same way, it happens with things which we have currently, or which we consider as ours us today also. Oh, it happens in the same way with those things also. Remember, amongst the reason for this identification, action is also one reason for the identification, and my foolishness is also one of the reason for the identification. Now, we need to understand, because of my past actions only I have got this body, and this body is the fruit of my action only. That is why I have identification with this particular body. you know but that is one side. Because of my action also, I told you now, because of action also identification happens. So this body I have got as part of fruit of my own action. That is one of the reason why I have identification with this particular body, because I don't see any other reason why I've got this body. Okay, but there are many identification which are not born out of action. There is no role of action in those identification, rather than the role there is only of ignorance and my foolishness. Because of my ignorance and foolishness, I take up some identification during the process of living in a particular life. Bhagwan says, Supreme Consciousness Bhagwan Krishna says, if you think that, because of your action, and your body is there, and because of that you have identification, remember, those actions because of which you feel that you've got the body, those actions were also born out of your ignorance. And because they were born out of ignorance, so that attachment you have is also part of ignorance. In the effect, in the karya, meaning the body, and in the combination of the inner equipments we have, which Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji call as karya karana sanghat, the combination of the cause and effect. And in that we have something called atma pratyaya. I told you the suffix, and that atma pratyaya means that aham bhav, in that it is part of either aham, it's part of me, it belongs to me, it's mine. That at Atma Pratyaya, that suffix of minus, my identification with those things is what is called as Ahankar. Why it is called as suffix? Because this is something which is pervaded in all those things we identify with. That is why it is called as Pratyaya. Now remember one thing, if I identify myself as this body, my identification with this body is all pervasive in the body. It has gone to every part of my body, and every part of my body I call as mine. This is mine and this is me. Whether it is mind, whether it is intellect, whether it is senses, whether it is prana, you know even the what do you call that, the qualities of the body also we have you know superimposed on us, like my weight, my color of skin, my complexion, my weight, I am slim, I am average, I am fat, I am fair, I am wheatish complexioned, I am short, I am tall. All those things I've superimposed. They all belong to my body. They have got nothing to do with me, but I have superimposed those things on me. That is what is called identification. That is why it is said pratigatam. It is gone to every nook and corner. As for what Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji says here, कार्य करण संघात आत्म प्रत्यय अहंकार तेन विविधम नानाविधम मूढ़ आत्मा अंतःकरणम यस्य स अयम् कार्यकरण धर्मा कार्यकरणाभिमानी अविद्यया कर्माणि आत्मनि मन्यमानः तत्तत् कर्मणाम aham karta iti manyate. It is something which is pratigatam. It has gone to every part of my body. It has gone to every expression of my body. It has gone to every aspect of my body. I told you, my weight, my height, my complexion, everything I've superimposed myself because of this Atma Pratyaya. How can this be myself? Why? Now I'm giving you one example here for you to understand. Now Vedanta, to explain certain aspects of Vedanta, definitely uses one example of our three states. What are the three states? Not the movie Three States. I'm talking about three states here, which is waking, dream, and deep sleep. Why? Because some aspects or many aspects of Vedanta can be explained easily using these three aspects of our life, because this is something which we are evident to every day. Now, how can these things be me? How can these things be myself? Why? Because in the deep sleep, this pratyaya, this suffix is completely missing. It is completely missing. If this would have been me, how can this be missing when I am alive in one particular state? If something is me, it should be present equally in all the three states. Remember, what is there present in all the three states? That's me, the self. Nothing else. Body is not there in the deep sleep. My karya karana sanghat is not there in the sleep. The karana sanghat is also not there in the deep sleep, which is mind is missing, intellect is not there, memories, all of them are missing at that time. Which means what? They are mine, they are not me. Me cannot be missing from any aspect of my life. It should be present. It should be a continuous flow. So remember one thing, how can all these things be me? Because if it is me, it should not be missing in any part of my life, at any part of my day-to-day life, so to say. Now this aham pratyaya, this suffix called aham, is so strong on that even though right now when I in the waking state, I feel it is so strong that it is pervaded in every aspect of my day. Right from the time I wake up, it is pervaded in every aspect of my day. Everything what I touch, it is present there. But the same thing which is currently seeming as very strong and very firm, it is something which is completely missing in my deep sleep state. So, which means what? This is definitely not an object form, it is a thought form. It is in the form of a thought and it is not in the form of an object. We call it in this way, it is not Vastu Roop, it is a Vritti Roop. Vritti means thought. It is not an objectified form, it is something which is in the form of a thought. And like, you know, all other thoughts go completely missing during my deep sleep state, in the same way this thought also goes on hides completely during my deep sleep, goes completely missing, vanishes in my deep sleep state. This ahankara pratyaya, this ego suffix X is something which is doing this leela throughout the day through my karya karana sangha, through my combination of the cause and effect which is there. And this, antakarana, this inner equipment, becomes deluded with this identification completely throughout the day. One more example I can give you is of the dream state. Let me give that example also so you understand. uh, in the dream state, just take the dream state as an example. For example, in the dream state, I'm traveling somewhere overseas. I'm just giving you an example. I'm traveling somewhere overseas. I reach the airport, after traveling maybe 100 kilometers from my home. I reach the airport, and reaching the airport, when I'm at the check-in counter, I realize, or when I'm entering the airport, I realize that I forgot my passport at home, and my home is almost 3 hours away, and my flight time is in next to 2.5 hours. Now remember how much panic will be there. Oh my God, I've I've lost my passport, or I forgot. How will I catch the flight? There is so much of panic. When does the panic go? At that point in time, some doorbell rings and I wake up. Are you still panicked? The panic which was there, which has overtaken that state, suddenly diminishes, suddenly vanishes like a thin air. Why? Because the dreamer who was there, the identification of the dreamer was identified with certain things in the dream, and the pain and pleasure of that identification was limited to that dream. In the same way, I told that in one of the podcasts, Puja Gurudev used to say it very beautifully, that remember, this waking state also is a big dream. When will you realize? Puja Gurudev used to say, wake up to that state of consciousness. The moment you wake up, you realize you were living in a dream till now. That is exactly what we need to understand with this particular thing here. Now, having said all these things, remember one thing, the correct understanding of the self also arises in the inner equipment, and the ignorance also houses in the inner equipment. Now, in case the actual understanding or knowledge of the self arises in the intellect or the inner equipment, the delusory thought also is something which is housed in the inner equipment only. Now, when the correct understanding or the knowledge of the self dawns in someone's inner equipment, that is when that person is called as Ajnani, a man of realization. And when the delusion is something which pervades in the inner equipment of a person, that is when the person is called as Mudha. Mudha means foolish. And what is the experience of this foolish person? That he is karya karana dharma, arthat karya karana abhimani. He is clearly identified with the cause and effect and its actions and duties. His own dharma, this person does not know at all. And because he does not know his own dharma, he superimposes the dharma or the duties and actions of the combination of the cause and effect. All this is nothing but ignorance alone. And because of this ignorance, this person accepts action as his own, and he accepts himself as a doer, experiences himself as a doer. Hey Arjun, those people who are ignorant, who do not have the knowledge yet, that those people, well, in such a way, they become karya karana sangat atma pratyaya, because of this suffix of karya karana identification, and with the karya karana, with the cause and effect, at combination of the cause and effect, at they are currently living as karya karana dharma. They have taken up, or they have assigned to themselves, self assigned, all the duties and actions of this form of cause and effect. Karya karana abhimani is what they are currently. They're identified clearly as someone who this combination of cause and effect belongs to, and that is why they have taken up the duty of all of them. And because of that, they consider themselves as the doer. Intelligence is in this thing, that whatever dharma belongs to whichever portion, it remains with them only, and I don't end up taking somebody else. I'm just giving you one more example which just strikes my mind right now. When you identify with some person, I'm just giving you an example, for you to understand. When I identify with some person, for example, I'm working somewhere and I consider somebody as my best friend. I'm just giving you an example. Now, since I have accepted this person as my best friend, the moment that person experiences some kind of pain and sorrow, just think, I will also feel the pain and sorrow. The pain and sorrow has not come to me, but it is clearly arising out of my identification with them. And whatever duties or actions belong to the effect, and they let them remain with the effect, and whatever duties and actions belong to the karana, with the cause, let them remain with them. Though the person who is a vidwan, who is a wise man, does not get impacted by all of these things. With a man of wisdom, knows his dharma well and remains in that at all. He does not get entangled in the duties or actions of this combination of cause and effect. Hey Mahabaho, those people, well, those people who know the reality and truth and the core of this quality and action, remember, in their vision, it is clear that gunaha guneshu vartante. And that is what the next verse is all about. That we'll take up in the next session. But before I do that, before I complete the session today, I'll read Puja Gurudev's commentary on this particular verse. Puja Gurudev says in his commentary on verse number 27, all along, Krishna has been insisting that nobler actions are actions without attachment. This is easier said than done. Even if one intellectually accepts this idea, it is not at all easy for him to act up to it. To every one of us, the difficulty is that we know not how to get ourselves detached from our activities and still act on in the field. The Lord gives here a method of discrimination by which we can easily develop the required amount of detachment. We had explained earlier how spiritual ignorance expresses itself at the intellectual level as desires, which again in the mental zone manifests as thoughts. And the very thoughts, colored by our mental tendencies, manifest themselves in their fulfillment in the outer world of objects as our actions. Thus, the tendencies of the mind, vasanas, express in the outer world as actions. Where there are noble thoughts, their noble actions manifest. When the thoughts are agitated, the actions also are uncertain, faltering, and confused. And where the thoughts are dull and animalistic, the actions generated from them are correspondingly base, vicious, and cruel. Thus, the mind's projections in the outer world are, in fact, a kind of crystallization of the mental vasana among the objects of the world, and these constitute the actions. These actions are therefore generated by the mind, strengthened in the mind, and ultimately performed with the mind. But the individual, due to his wrong identification with his own mind, gets the false notion that he himself is the actor, the doer. This action arrogating ego naturally starts feeling an anxiety for its success and a burning attachment for the result of its actions. In a dream, we create a world of our own and we identify ourselves with the world so made. And this identifier is called the dreamer. We all know that the sorrows of the dream all belong to the dreamer and to no one else. The dreamer is liberated from his pains when he ends his identification with the dream kingdom. Similarly, the actions in the world outside, which are nothing other than the vasanas existing in one's own mind, cannot of themselves give one any attachment, but the attachment is felt by one who gets identified with one's own mental conditions. The moment one understands this simple fact, all one's attachments end, and therefore one lives in perfect peace. This identification with the mental condition creates the false sense of ego, which arrogates to itself the idea, I am the doer. The doer demands the fruits of his action. To get over this attachment is to end this misconception. But as regards to wise man, is what Bhagavan is going to say in the next particular verse. That much for today. Rest we'll see in the next session. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि श्रीमन्नारायणायेति समर्पयामि ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम ओम तत्सत्